All right, you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm not ready.
It's your show. You're the host, man.
What?
Seriously, come on now, man. Get started.
I don't want to. Not it.
It's
Hey everybody, welcome back to FFB from the 50, where we tackle every issue from both sides of the field.
We tackle?
Sometimes, gently. It's not flag football.
It's 2-hand tap.
What?
We're old, man. We can't tackle anymore. Let me break something in half.
Oh, yeah, we are both over 40 now.
I'm still 26.
29 forever, baby. That's me. All right. So tonight we're going to start with a different kind of show. You're going to see a lot of fun, or hear a lot of conversations, maybe some laughter.
Might cry.
Definitely some tears. So we're going to do something a little different. This is going to be a different series. This is going to be a little bit more lighthearted. This is going to be more conversational based. So tonight I'm joined by my buddy Dave Leeper, who actually won the championship in the first year I ever played fantasy football. So if you've been following my videos, I talked about that first draft and how awful it was for me. Going in completely blind, not knowing what I was doing.
Oh, and who won?
I already said it was you.
Oh, okay.
Why do you guys rub it in?
Just want to double check that. Want to make sure I got my accolades.
Yeah, his accolades.
My accolades.
So, uh-huh.
Everybody likes
By the way,
accolades.
speaking of accolades, we faced each other in one of our leagues last week. Week one? Who won that match? I believe I got high score that. Yeah. Yeah. Last week I played you.
It was bad weather week, man. I didn't do well. I mean, they've already played in bad weather.
Think you're the Chicago Bears?
You know, hey, man, it was a swimming pool.
So, anyways, let's get serious here for just a second. This is Dave Leeper. He's been a friend of mine for absolutely too long.
Been a minute.
Been a minute. So tonight we're just going to have a conversation. We're going to call this new series the Fantasy Football Fireside Chat. I'll have different guests on here with me for this series, but I can't think of anybody better to join me on the first one than Dave.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I shouldn't call you Dave. I should actually call you by your fantasy football team names, right? So is it Grease It Baby, or is it that what she said?
Might be Grease It Baby this year.
Yeah, well,
because that is what she said.
Yeah, looking at your teams, that might be the truth. All right, so Dave and I are going to do a walk down memory lane. We're not going to so much look at you at the camera. We're just going to have fun conversing. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you could, go down to the comment section and leave some of your comments, some of your favorite memories that you have playing fantasy football or attending sports events. What does fantasy football mean to you? Why do you enjoy it so much? If you're like my friend John, why do you hate it? I mean, no offense, John. I know it's all about luck. Not really. It does take some skill, some thought.
It's all luck, John. It's all luck.
But, yeah, we won't mention any last names, but John, you know who you are. But before we get started, we have to give our buddy Adam a huge shout out because
this is true.
Mr. Adam is now apparently famous. He's had 2 shout outs on national radio, so let's go ahead and give him a third one. So Adam, here's to you. Michael Fabiano read your tweet and absolutely roasted you for it, and rightfully so.
Sorry. I wasn't supposed to laugh.
Really was kind of surprised you were so proud of yourself for having that one read online because he ripped you pretty good. But hey, you were mentioned on national radio on Sirius XM, channel 87 Fantasy Sports by Michael Fabs. And earlier, I got another text from you saying, holy crap, 2 days in a row. Kendall Valenzuela and Pete Overzet just read one of my tweets on the air. Also about the fact that you started Devontae Smith instead of DK Metcalf. Smooth move. But
yeah, that's kudos. Nice call on that one.
I will say, in his defense, I did not see Geno Smith coming out and playing ball the way he did in the first quarter.
You did not see Geno Smith coming out?
I mean,
I could have told you Geno Smith was going to come out and ball it up. That guy has been waiting so long to play this game, and he was ready to play.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I actually thought about trying to find Pete Carroll and seeing if he would take my call. I mean, weren't you a backup quarterback in high school? I was thinking about giving him your name and number.
Yeah, maybe.
I thought maybe
but he also played 4 years at West Virginia, so, I mean, he did do pretty well. So, but at the same time, when you have nothing else to lose and you're, what you got to prove besides going out and beating Russell Wilson.
I'm going to need more coffee.
Yeah, but touche, though, he did play a good game, but also, too, the Broncos did give that away, too.
Yeah, I was going to say they have that one I'm sure you heard Nathaniel Hackett's comments today where he's, yeah, I made the wrong call. We should have gone for it on 4th and 5. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah. Well, hindsight is too though. When you pay a quarterback that much money, you're putting the team in his hands. So you should have let him have the ball, not the kicker.
Probably so.
That's why I'm in a league that's F kickers.
Yeah, well.
So But
we won't mention that the man behind the scenes here for us actually was a kicker and quite successful. Yeah, I'm glad I'm on this side of the table. So, all right. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you tonight about is...
could he kick a 64-yard field goal?
No.
No?
No?
63-yarder.
50, 58.
With the wind and the trajectory and
Yeah.
65,000 people.
Yeah. Mile high.
Mile high.
All right. Hey, just so y'all know, we're not making this up. Joe is here. You can hear his voice. Maybe we can get him to come on and give us a little bit of a salute. This is my producer, Joe. Joe is the man behind the scenes. He's been here for every single episode. I want to give him a shout out and a huge thanks. Owe him a debt of gratitude for giving me this opportunity, this platform to talk about fantasy sports. So, having gotten all that mushy stuff out of the way, shout out to Adam, shout out to Joe. Gratitude for you being here on the show so we can have some different kind of content. Let's take a quick walk down memory lane.
Sure.
All right, so like I said, Dave was with me the first year that I played fantasy football. A little bit of backstory. We were both actually working in banking at the time. I was a customer service manager, and Dave was a mortgage loan originator for the bank. And the other branch manager, the other manager in the location that we worked at was into fantasy sports with Dave. And he approached me, he said, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to go out and meet some of the other professionals in the community, network a little bit. So for me, that's how it got started. I was pretty much pushed into it, had no clue what I was doing. Dave, obviously you did because you won the title. So that year, talk about a complete dichotomy. So you had the first overall pick, I had the last pick. You knew what you were doing, I had no clue. Looking at the draft, it makes sense. Like, I can see why you won the title. So we're going to go over your team a little bit. I've already gone over my team. We've covered it in a previous video. I do want to go over some of the funnier picks, and I just want to get your reaction.
Well, this ought to be interesting.
It should be. I know it was 08, but I also remember this day very well because I sat in the draft room, and when some of these picks came out, whether it was mine and I'll just call you Goodwater. I won't mention your name. I don't want to throw you underneath the bus. So Goodwater will be the other team. When Goodwater and I were making our picks, it was interesting to see everybody around the room snickering and flat out laughing at us. A little bit of boos and jeers. I got to admit, I was pretty sure coming out of that draft I didn't want to ever do it again.
Yeah, you get those feelings sometimes, but it just takes time to get in there and get your feet wet, basically.
Yeah, well, get your feet wet and get your butt whooped. So
well, I mean, a good butt kicking always turns into a nice, successful.
It depends on how you take it. You can take it two different ways, folks. You could either take that butt kicking and you can choose to give up, or you can use that as motivation. And that's not just fantasy football, that's anything in life.
Pretty much everything. Life's gonna beat you down, but you just gotta get back up and keep trucking at it.
So considering exactly, and considering you're the one that won the title, you're the one that did the butt kicking because you were the champion that year.
Yeah,
so,
I think at that point I probably knew more knowledge than everybody else at that point. So as you can see over the years, the strategy has kind of changed a little bit.
I'd say the game has changed.
The game has changed too. So that's kind of quite drastic also too.
Yeah.
From the aspects of the game from 08 to 2022, there's been a whole lot of offensive changes. On top of defensive schemes, there's been a whole lot of changes going on.
Right, and I was going to say one of the first things, looking back at this draft, one of the first things that really stands out to me is how many running backs went early compared to wide receivers.
Yes, that was the biggest change back then. It was like every heavy running back, except I did take Reggie Wayne as my first overall pick.
Right, and we'll get to that because your draft is actually the exact opposite. This year you started with 2 wide receivers. Now keep in mind, you were ahead of the curve because back in 08, everybody was going running back crazy. Now, what's really interesting is, so this year you won the title. The next year, the other branch manager that I was talking about won the title, and he went with 3 wide receivers in a row. So this right here, I would say, folks, is where the fantasy football world started to shift a little bit. You also need to keep in mind, back then we didn't have running back by committees like we do now.
Right.
So running backs,
single back, and pretty much played every down.
You had your bell cow. There was
unless they got hurt.
Right. No such thing as a third down back. So. But at this point, the game itself was changing. So this is about the first time that we started seeing those quarterbacks throw for 4,000 yards. I don't think we had a 5,000 yard season yet at this point, but we'll go through this a little bit and we'll talk about these picks and you'll see what we're talking about. So starting off with yours, because like I said, we've already covered mine. If you want to see my draft, go back and check out the videos that we've posted before. I kind of gave my bio a little bit in one of the previous videos. We actually have this draft pulled up, my picks only, because again, I don't want to put anybody else down. But if you are interested in that, go out, take a look at those videos that we've posted in the past. I think it's either episode 1 or episode 2. I think you should check them all out anyway, so go for it. But let's cover your draft. So first round here, looking back, so this is the 08 draft. You took Reggie Wayne with the first overall pick.
Yeah, that was when the Colts were at their peak, and Peyton Manning was just a machine. So you knew, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken...
Peyton Manning was taken in the first round, too.
If I'm not mistaken, though, I believe this year... Was Marvin Harrison injured or something, or was he retired yet?
I don't know. We'll get to that here in a few minutes because I'm
That's
sure
kind of-
if he's there, he'll show up. So
So he should have showed up pretty early.
right here, he was taken in the
Yeah.
fifth
Okay.
round.
Yeah. So, Reggie Wayne was the upbeat number 1 receiver at that time. So, and then
Yeah, because he'd already supplanted Marvin Harrison as the number 1. Now, interesting thing too, folks. Looking at this draft, there were 3 Colts taken in the first round. You had Reggie Wayne that you took with the first overall pick. Joseph Adai went with the 3rd pick, and Peyton Manning went with the 10th pick. This was a 12-person league, so 3 Colts. I mean, their offense. They were
at that time in 2008, the
definitely
Colts'
a-
offense were basically number 1 or number 2 in the NFL.
Right.
And so the only question mark you had, you knew Peyton Manning was going to throw the ball, and you knew his receivers were going to catch it.
right.
The only question you had was the backfield.
Right.
And Adai, I believe, was pretty close to first season or second season.
Yeah, he was pretty young at that point.
So that's your question mark. Now it's a complete dynamic change to now with the horse Jonathan Taylor back there.
Right.
So and then and string noodle arm Matt Ryan throwing it back there. So
It's not string noodle. It's just creaky and crackly.
well, I mean he's got it
Rice
oiled up.
Krispies.
As long as they keep feeding Taylor, they'll be just fine.
Right. So another thing too, folks, this league is a PPR league. And keep in mind, back then that was when PPR first was starting to become popular. So a guy like Joseph Adai catching the ball out of the backfield, that was kind of new too, because those running backs, those bell cow backs, weren't really
But if you
receivers.
understood any Colts offense, Adai was your last option on any pass play out going on.
Yeah.
So he's going to hit Reggie Wayne or Marvin Harrison and maybe a tight end
Right.
if you're lucky.
So yeah, in looking at this, when we look at the running backs that went off in the first round, we had Marshawn Lynch go with the 2nd pick, Joseph Adai with the 3rd pick, Ryan Grant with the 4th, Steven Jackson with the 5th, Brian Westbrook with the 7th, Adrian Peterson with the 8th, Marion Barber with the 11th, and LaDainian Tomlinson with the 12th. So we had 8 running backs go.
Cow.
But what you're starting to see here is Marshawn Lynch was not a pass catcher, but Joseph Adai was. Ryan Grant,
He was a runner.
he was a runner. He caught, but Steven Jackson was a pass catcher.
Yeah.
Brian Westbrook was a
And
pass
so
catcher.
Peterson was a pass catcher.
Well, yeah, somewhat. And LaDainian Tomlinson definitely was.
Yeah.
Like he was.
He was mostly a pass
I
catcher.
would say at that point, probably Brian Westbrook and LaDainian Tomlinson were the 2 guys that really.
Mm-hmm.
We would call them the modern day Christian McCaffreys. Now
Yeah.
that's not a real fair comparison because McCaffrey's had the 100 catch, season.
Yeah, but the offenses weren't tailored to running backs catching the ball, though.
Right, but that's
So-
when that shift started.
Right.
Those wide receivers were starting to be challenged target-wise by the running backs. Now, what's interesting, though, we're not going to see a whole lot of targets to these tight ends. And some things never change. I would say, like, even today, we have a top tier of tight ends that really is 1 or 2, Kelsey and Andrews. And then we have the next, which is Waller. If you want to throw Kittle in there, if he can stay healthy, you'd put Kittle in there.
But also, if you watch your defensive schemes now, at least from my perspective, is you're looking at tight ends also have to be the blitz blocker. So your smaller slot receivers not going to come in on a outside blitz, which there was a perfect example of this on Twitter I saw from an Arizona fan last week about how Kyler Murray couldn't read the blitz, and it's very simple from the coverage to move in the receiver to make the blitz, but he didn't see it. It must be why they put that in his contract to not play video games. So I mean, it was blatantly obvious, even from a viewer who can look and see, why is my strong safety sitting up on the line of scrimmage? Well, there's probably a blitz coming with man coverage on the corner.
Right?
I mean,
All right.
and that's. I mean, that might be over people's heads, but that's a very simple way to put it. If you find the Twitter, it's going to explain it in football terms, which is fantastic. So
Right. Hey, let's take a time out real quick because, folks, I want you to go down to the comment section right now, and I want you to say in the comment section, do you think the hot start that the Arizona Cardinals had, they were 8-0 or 9-0 to start the season last year? I want you to go down to the comment section, and I want you to post whether or not you think they started losing games after Call of Duty came out was coincidence or fact?
Ding ding.
So, if you could, because that's about the time that game was released. Joe and I have talked about this off camera in the past. Go down to the comment section and make that comment for me. Do you think Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals starting to stumble after their hot start last year had anything to do, timing-wise, when Call of Duty came out? All right, so I'm going to analyze your draft. Your first-round pick, I totally got when we were there. I got why you did it. But you got to understand, going into that, all I knew was that it was PPR. And I had to look up what PPR meant. I had no clue. In fact,
And that's the other...
I asked you. I asked you because I remember walking into your office and they said, Dave, what does PPR mean? I have no clue. And you're like, point per reception. It's like, so they get a point every time they catch the ball?
Yes.
And you're like, yeah. All right. So he took Reggie Wayne, and I got that because Reggie Wayne is a target hawk. He was a ball catcher. You got to keep in mind, go back to that video where I talked about this. I had no clue what I was doing, but I took LaDainian Tomlinson with the 12th pick.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, he also was a pass catcher. He also pass catching back.
Right, and that's why I took him.
And you had old reliable at that time in Phillip Rivers, who
actually was still fairly young and still throw it.
But he was still in San Diego, and he was still, at that time, San Diego for all you young folks out there. That's where they did play. Not too long ago. So, if you remember that. But, I mean, it's the Chargers' curse, though. I mean, they're going to play well, put up good stat numbers, but never go anywhere in the playoffs. So, I mean, it is what it is. So, you just kind of have that round. And this lets viewers know I am a diehard Bears fan, so I do understand disappointment.
Yeah, I'm a Bears fan, too. I'm sure you guys have caught on to that before. So, all right, looking at the second round, I took TJ Houshmandzadeh.
TJ Houshmandzadeh.
Okay.
Which, I mean, to be fair, though, at that time, he was the number one receiver for Carson Palmer, if I believe that.
He was, and Carson Palmer went in the second round.
Right.
Mr. Mess took him with the 6th pick in the second round. But, yeah, I mean...
But I just have to point this out to you. Guess who was still the number one pick for a quarterback in 2008 in the first round, besides Peyton Manning?
Yeah, back in 2008, actually the first quarterback off the board with the 6th pick in 2008, folks, my first year playing fantasy football was TB12. And he's still around.
It's Tom Brady. It's not TB12. It's Tom Brady.
Did you say something about a goat?
Yeah, I hate to say it. It sucks. I don't
It
want to say
hurts.
it. It hurts.
It hurts.
It really cuts me deep.
Okay.
It hurts.
So, Tom Brady,
but
because I know you're watching these videos.
I
know you're out there watching this Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know that you are looking at two Bears fans. I'm also a Colts fan. I'm from Northwest Indiana.
Not so much Colts fan. Maybe Baltimore.
Well, I like the Colts. Yeah, you're the GOAT. Go down in the comment section. Tell me if you think I'm right or not. Man, I really hate saying that because I love Peyton.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. I feel a tear coming. It
Well,
hurts.
I feel something else coming on. But
I feel like I'm gonna get hit by a lightning bolt.
we're going to keep this PG. All right, so if you could, I would like you to look at the draft results. I would like you to tell me who the 3rd pick in the second round was.
Robbie Gold, baby.
All right, so this
Wish
was
you were still in Chicago, Robbie. I wish you were still in Chicago.
Oh, goodness.
Just gonna throw that out there.
So
Like Caskies.
at this point, when the pick was announced as Robbie Gold in the second round, because there was like, I want to say, was it 5 to 10 seconds where nobody said a word, like you could hear a pin drop. And I remember thinking,
pure shock.
I remember thinking in my mind, because I had no clue, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. Kickers are typically the highest scoring players on their team, and this is all about points.
I think we had that conversation the next day.
We did, because I asked you, like, why is everybody laughing? They're high scores. So, like I said, 5 to 10 seconds of stunned silence, and then after that, the laughter began. Poor Goodwater. I don't think he's ever played fantasy football again.
No,
I was clueless.
never.
All right, so getting down to your pick, because you had the wraparound.
Mm-hmm.
You had the first pick, we're Serpentine. You took Terrell Owens. So now you've gone wide receiver with Reggie Wayne and Terrell Owens. What was your thought there?
Well, it's PPR league, and your wide receivers pretty much, even in garbage time, are going to get you the most points. So with Terrell Owens, I believe at San Francisco at that time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, was Jeff Garcia his quarterback?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And they still ran that West Coast offense, slinging it around. And T.O., he's a big mouth, wants the ball, so he's going to get it. So that's why you take him. And so now you got your PPR, at least the way I'm looking at it, because then I wrap around with the top of the 3rd round Now I need to fill a running back slot. So now a lot of the top running backs have been taken. But to be honest with you, the only one that was really interesting at that time would have been Tomlinson for me. I was not a fan of Adai, just because he was younger and he was playing in a scheme where Peyton Manning would be tossing the ball around more.
Right.
So, because also at that time, if you do realize, the Colts defense was still not that great.
Right. So they were one of the first pass-first offenses with a defense that really was not
very good.
Not very good. So they were always going to have to be putting up points.
So then I went with the notable from Baltimore, Willis McGahee, who would end up having I think he blew out his knee, I think, that year.
Was that the year?
Yeah, I think it might have been. But before that, I mean, that was a solid pick from an offense that was based on a run offense. So with, I believe, Dilfer.
I think Dilfer was still there.
Dilfer.
Yep, I think that was before Flacco. All right, so you're starting out with Reggie Wayne.
Say Flacco? No. Was it Flacco?
Well,
or am I thinking Keanu Reeves in replacements?
No, that was Falco.
Falco. Okay.
Falco. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yep. All right. So Reggie Wayne.
Anyways, Keanu Reeves, great actor. Good stuff.
That's a great movie. Any football movie is a great movie. Yeah. So you went Reggie Wayne, Terrell Owens, Willis McGahee. Hey, do me a favor. So unfortunately, we had to point out the third pick in the second round. Can you take a look at the 10th pick in the third round and let me know what Goodwater did?
Oh, I mean, that was probably one of the better choices of his round 3 pick of that year, number 10 there. He took the Indianapolis Colts defense, which was phenomenally not good. But at the same time, again, I believe there was another 5 minutes of stunned silence and maybe one of these going around the room.
All right, so folks, I think it's at this point I got to tell you that it cost $100 just to join this league, and at this point the thanks for the donation comments were going around.
In his defense, I pretty much think that he really had no clue. He thought he was just coming in and picking football players and that type of thing, which probably we should educate him. But
so having said that, let me.
But it did pad my pocketbook, so thank you.
Having said that, let me take a second here real quick, because whether it's a money league or a free league, here's what I want you to do. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you watch the videos. Do your research ahead of time, because, like I said, I don't think he's ever played again, and when this happens, it's not fun. And that's the whole point of fantasy football, in my opinion, is to have fun. Yours is to make money.
Well, mine's to have fun.
The camaraderie, having fun,
yes.
and proving that I'm better than you.
But the thing is, with fantasy football, you can do any type of level, and that's what makes it even better. Is you can join those leagues that are serious. Like, okay, we got keepers, we got contracts, we got to keep them. Fantasy leagues, we can do them. And but the other part is that too, you can just join a fun league. You can just go find a fun league to join. And a lot of this now is online, where you can learn. You can go to a draft and learn, and then see how it plans out for you. And you can learn your mastery that way.
Right. You can go out and join any free public league. Doesn't cost money, and almost every single fantasy football platform I think is offering this.
Yes. And you can even ask your friends and family. I mean, throw it in there just so you can practice. I mean, if you want to, you can do a family league practice. But yeah, back in 08, I mean, there's Reggie Bush on here. I mean,
right. Yep. And we're going to get to more Goodwater's picks as well as ours. But yeah, so my point to you folks is have fun with it. But if you're going to join a money league, make sure you do your research ahead of time.
Yes.
Because
don't just throw your money away.
Right.
Money's hard to earn, hard to make, and you earned it hard. And if you're going to use it on something fun, make sure you got yourself invested.
Yep. And make sure that you're joining leagues that you can have fun in. I mean, for me, again, that's the whole point. I got to tell you, so my favorite day of the fantasy football season isn't even the championship. It is draft day.
Oh yeah, draft day is fun because you get people with all sorts of spite and all sorts of anger. You took my player. And it's great.
So much trash talking at the drafts. I prefer to do my drafts live in person. Dave, we're in at least 2 leagues together.
Yes,
and those are both in person. And then I've got another one that I literally drive all the way to Ohio for. Adam, who I gave you a shout out, you and your wife Teresa, you come up, you drive up for the 2 leagues that we're in together as well. The camaraderie is fantastic. We sit around, we eat good food, we trash talk. But for me, I kid you not, the night before the draft, I can't sleep. It is like the night before Christmas. That's how much I love this. All that preparation going into it.
You watched draft day 25 times in that week.
Yeah, I could probably quote the whole movie,
Yeah.
but you know what I actually did to motivate myself this year?
What's that?
I watched Waterboy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Little H2O.
Little Bobby Boucher.
Not a bullshit.
Little Bobby Boucher got to get fired up.
You playing that foosball, Bobby?
Foosball's not
You
for
playing
the
that
devil.
It's for the
Foosball's
devils.
for my Bobby. All
They
right.
don't have any obligatas.
We better get focused because we're at 25 minutes on this video. This is a
Well, that's
humdinger of a
fine.
video.
That's
so,
what editing is for. You know how you can take out the
folks,
obligatas.
I'll get him to focus. But when you get the two of us together, you never know.
No.
You never know what's going to come out. So,
But anyways,
all right.
back to what he was saying. I actually do online leagues too. So because I do them late at night with some family members and stuff, and those are for fun. So just to let you know.
Yeah, the late at night leagues are always fun, aren't they, Dave? All right. Round 4. In round 4 I had the first pick because I'm still in that wrap round. So by the way, I purposely didn't mention my round 3 pick. I did not take a defense. I took Matt Hasselbeck. You already know this if you watched my video. Round 4 I took Jason Witten just because he was the
Definitely, he was a very used tight end in a Jason Garrett system. Is that right?
I'm not sure the OC was there at the time.
Was it?
But for me, I wanted to get a tight end just because even at that point, even as a novice, I was recognizing that there was just hardly anybody out there.
But him and Tony, well, you were a novice at the time, but him and Tony Romo were good friends. So
Right, and then was Dallas Clark? Was he real? I think did he come on shortly after that?
Mhm.
I think Jason Witten was like the clear-cut number 1 tight end at the time.
Well, Clark was actually a fullback though, technically.
Or not.
No, Clark is for Dallas. Clark played for.
He was wasn't he the no? Who was the tight? Folks, go down to the comments section. Who was the tight end for the Colts, Joe? Who was the tight end for the Colts that just caught pass after
Dallas
that?
Clark.
Dallas
Yeah,
Clark.
it's Clark.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, all right, I'm with you.
yeah. So, anyways,
I was thinking of Ken Dilger, but
Yeah. A little earlier.
yeah, a little
Yeah,
earlier.
a little earlier.
Yeah, a little earlier. So that's where my time
Yeah.
time's whopped here.
Ken Dilger.
definitely gonna need more coffee.
Yeah. So
All right,
That's good.
so third pick, Goodwater took Dominic Rhodes, another Colt. I'm hoping you're seeing a trend. So we're going to make a video about fantasy sins that you should not commit and letting your fandom rule your fantasy is one of those cardinal sins, and that can go 2 different ways.
it goes 2 different ways because you can let your fandom and you not pick a team because you dislike that team because of your fandom.
Teresa, we're talking about you.
So-
I know you won't take any Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
Teresa,
see, and
you're-
I'll be honest. If you look at my drafts over the years, pretty early on, I didn't take any Packers.
Yeah,
I didn't.
and I did.
Yeah, and
I
I
did.
didn't. So
And it
but
hurt.
I was stuck with that, and it was hard to watch. And
But as a Bears fan, sometimes you have to have those Packers on your team because we got our butts kicked every year, and I need at least some reason to be excited about
I
the
learned
outcome.
over the years. It took me a few
Yeah.
years, but I learned.
So yeah, we're going to talk about this in a video. 2 cardinal sins to avoid, or a cardinal sin to avoid that could work in 2 different ways is letting your fandom affect how you draft and how you manage your fantasy team. Obviously, the issue that we have here is this guy's a Colts fan, and all he's picking is Colts players through the first 4 rounds. In fact, through the first 5 rounds, he took Colts players.
There wasn't many Colts after that, and it pretty much had to kind of help him pick players.
Right, so at that point he had to diversify. So don't do that. Don't let your actual fandom affect your fantasy. Don't draft all the
Can't
players.
wait till we get to round 6.
Okay. So, anywho's,
Is this the same draft?
this is the same draft. Yep, same draft. All right, so yeah, don't take everybody from the same team just because you're a fan of that team. Don't purposely avoid players because you don't like the team. All right, so
All right, moving on.
You took
round
Ernest
4.
Graham.
I took Ernest Graham. Needed another running back to fill my slot there, and that was kind of a lower tier running back pick. There wasn't many left with because you had Ronnie Brown going before that, and also Jamal Lewis. So there was a few not left, and Dominic Rhodes. I honestly would have took Dominic Rhodes if Mr. Indianapolis didn't take him. So
right. Well, and remember we had 8 running backs go in the first
right,
round.
that's what I mean.
alone.
There wasn't you're
much
on.
left.
It was a lower tier back, but you still because I think did we have 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers in this?
No,
league?
1 running back.
One
but we
running
had
back.
flex.
Flex.
And
So
at
yeah.
that
So
point-
at that point, I had my starting 3 for wide receiver and running back. So I was looking at flex, but also with a backup running back.
Right, and then you
So-
follow that up with Lawrence Maroney in the 5th.
Right.
Now, I do want to say, at this point, now a lot of flexes nowadays, you can do running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Back then,
No.
it was running back or wide
Wide
receiver.
receiver. So So
Yep.
you kind of stacked up on the like I said, but then back then too, the offenses were more running back zoned.
Mhm.
So that's why you kind of stocked up on the running backs. But at the same time, it's just kind of a different strategy for the draft. So, and then you went defense, which that was just a rookie mistake. So that's
in round 5.
yeah, that's not really anything.
And then Jay Cutler, I picked my backup
Yeah,
quarterback.
they
in
were
the
going.
second.
They were going round 6 with Jay.
No, he
with
was
the
still
Cuddy,
in Denver.
Cuddy man.
He was still in Denver, but they already drafted Matt Hasselbeck.
And he
so.
was throwing well in Denver too. So he was putting up some numbers. I mean, he was good for fantasy points.
He was, but through 6 rounds, I now have 2 quarterbacks and a defense.
Right. So
Matt
now,
Hasselbeck.
like with round 6 for me, I went tight end because right at that point, Chris Cooley for the Washington Redskins at that time, not the Commanders, but was a top tier tight end. And I do believe Anthony Gonzalez was probably the best tight end at that time. So playing for Kansas City. Does that sound about right?
Anthony Gonzalez, wasn't he the little slot receiver for the Colts?
No.
Tony Gonzalez.
You're thinking Tony.
Oh, that's right.
Tony
That's
Gonzalez.
right. Never mind. I'm sorry. It was Goodwater. Threw me off.
Yeah.
That was a Colt.
Yeah,
So-
that was a Colt.
So I think So
So yeah, you took Cooley, who was probably the best tight end available, and then in the 7th round you got Phillip Rivers.
yep. So old reliable Phillip was good for 25 to 30 points every single week.
Yep. And
What a
then
pick.
round 8 you went back to wide receiver and you grabbed Santana
Moss, Speedster from the slot.
Yep. Now I do want to bring something up here. So in the 7th round I took Lindell White. Now, funny story for you guys. Dave and I went up to a Bears game and we watched the Tennessee Titans play against the Chicago Bears, and it was like 10 degrees with the wind off the lake.
It was
nasty.
It was a warm, beautiful day in Chicago.
Wind chills of what, -8?
8.
Oh, it was
maybe,
terrible.
-7. It was beautiful though. Beautiful. I was shirtless. I mean,
Oh,
it was
gosh.
great.
Yeah, he was
And,
shirtless.
yes, I was shirtless. All those ladies are like, "Oh, you're so brave." Look at him going shirtless. Oh, what a sexy man. No, not really.
But the funny part is we're up towards the top of Soldier Field.
Which I will tell you, I enjoy being up top on on stadiums because for football, because I like watching the plays develop. I like watching the strategy. Just to let you know.
Now, I will say, I see what he's saying, but Dave and I have also been up to Soldier Field twice where we've been to the executive suite for the bank that we used to work at. I'll prefer that because the food was divine. You still got a good spot. You can. But
I'm an old school guy. I'm a weather guy. I still sit outside in my driveway and put my TV in my car and I grill and I watch the football game. Old school. Did it last year for the playoff game or Trubisky's playoff game. I'm sorry, we didn't run in the playoffs last year.
I was gonna say I don't know what Bears you're
Mitch
watching, but it
Trubisky's
wasn't
playoff
mine.
game. I was outside. All my neighbors were driving by and thought I was probably a weirdo, but
He's
that
watching
was
the
fun.
Cincinnati Bearcats. That's who he was watching last year in the playoffs because it wasn't our Chicago Bears.
But I'm an old school guy. I like the outdoors. So.
All right, so we said in the 8th round, you took Santana Moss. In the 9th round, you went ahead and grabbed Rashard Mendenhall. He was the running back there for Pittsburgh. Yep.
So
And he actually had a pretty good year for you.
he did.
if I
He had a
remember.
really good year.
Like, as far as a backup running back, you couldn't have asked for a
No.
better bye-week fill-in than what he was producing, so that was good. 10th round, you finally went with your kicker.
I went with a Colt.
Vinatieri.
No, wait. No, he was a Patriot
at that time.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yep. And then Patrick Creighton. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard of in years.
Mm-hmm.
In the 11th round,
Yes. I
Maurice,
didn't have him in much. He didn't play a lot.
in fact, I don't even think he even made it to your final roster. You
probably
must have
didn't.
dropped him at some point.
I don't think I did.
Maurice Morris, an interesting flyer late in the 12th round with the last pick of the 12th
Yeah,
round.
at the 12th round though, you're kind of reaching for some depth in the possible. It's more of an up pick. It's more of what promise might it have about mid-season.
Right.
So when they find their role, when they find what they're looking for, but again, that comes back to your research. So he was number 2 on a depth chart,
Right.
but with very good potential for mid-season.
Right.
So
That's where you identify those young players early on and try to grab them leg, exactly like I did with Arian Foster in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then I just went for a fun pick in my last round.
You want to tell them who it is, or are you too embarrassed?
No, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with the best quarterback ever drafted besides Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell.
All right, folks. So there you have it.
And you want to talk about potential. He is prototypical for this type of year now in 2022. He was, 6'6", like 280 or 260.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, with a
he wound up
cannon.
at, like,
The guy
360.
could throw from end zone to end zone on a dart. Like, the dude was impeccable.
Right. So when you look at his measurables and when you look at his play at LSU, right? You went to LSU. Leave a comment in the comment section if I got that wrrong. I know I didn't get that wrong, but I want your comments because the more you interact with this video, the more YouTube will pick up on that.
He's a tiger.
Spread it. So there you have it. I mean, that's a championship caliber draft right there. Now, one of the points that I've made.
I do have to point this out though. In the 13th round, there's a Packer taken in the last round of this in 2008.
Yeah. Do we have to bring this up?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. 7th pick of the 13th round, Aaron Rodgers.
Last round, 7th pick. How times have changed.
For some. Right, Joe? Yeah, old reliable. All right, so there you have it. That is the draft of the Fantasy Football Champ, the first year that I played fantasy football back in 2008. Now, a point that I've made, though, you cannot win your fantasy football league on draft day. You can lose it.
Very easily.
Like I did, like Goodwater did.
Yes.
You can lose it, but you can't win it.
No.
My point is, in order to win the league, you do need a strong draft, but what else do you have to do?
You have to pay attention, for one, and you have to pay attention to the league, you have to pay attention to your injuries, and you have to pay attention to matchups.
Right.
So, and on top of that, and then you have to scout and see whether somebody else might need something that you can kind of make an advantage of in your team, as in trading. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big trader. I like to work off the waiver wires. So I like to work with what's out there, and because people will drop things, and then if you go and find a team report or something like that, it might be an easy pick to pick up because you're going to come to those bye weeks, which you're going to be extremely looking for, where you might not have paid attention to your bye week drafting, and you could end up with 3 or 4 players off your draft, and then you're like, ooh, now I might have to drop somebody to fill a slot.
What do I do now?
And what do I do now? So your pre-draft is basically the beginning to set you up. You'll have your main starters is basically what I look at, and then it's kind of filling who's going to be good for me in a backup role that has the most potential. Yep. And you kind of go from that after about the 6th round. So,
all right. So y'all just heard his draft. I'm going to go over his final roster with you to prove our point that you have to manage your team. All right. So your final roster. Phillip Rivers as your quarterback.
Mr. Reliable.
Yep. Your wide receivers that you started were Reggie Wayne and Terrell Owens. You had Santana Moss in your flex. At some point, you've gone out and picked up Ted Ginn.
Ted Ginn Jr. was a big punt returner still playing for Miami, and he was having quite the year on reception-wise. So he was on the waiver market. You picked him up.
Right.
So so it looks like still on my bench. So my starters, I had Moss and Cooley were still my starter. I did pick up LeRon McClain.
And he started for you in the championship game.
He started because he ended up being a baller. He balled out for that last part of the year. And that's what you have to pay attention to. Every team has those ballers that show up. They may not show up at the beginning of the year, but then all of a sudden something happens and they start focusing the offense on a little different aspect. The quarterback picks him up different.
Right.
The running back starts seeing the holes different. It's all about practice, but you got to pay attention to that, especially if you're playing for money in money leagues. You've got to pay attention.
So looking at the rest of your roster here on your bench, you have Michael Jenkins, who you did not draft, Fred Taylor, and Mercedes Lewis. You didn't draft those 3 guys.
Yep.
So, yeah, guys, that's my point. So have a strong draft, pay attention to your team, and then you should be able to do pretty well, but do your research. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode, and stay tuned. We'll have more Fantasy Football Fireside Chat for you coming up. In the meantime, y'all take care.